In the early 20th century, in Oxford, England, a group of academics, authors, and professors began convening weekly to discuss ideas, present their literary projects, and offer one another honest critiques. C.S. Lewis, an accomplished author and professor of English literature at Magdalen College, was a central figure along with his close friend J.R.R. Tolkien, a philologist and professor of Anglo-Saxon at Pembroke College. The group of 6 to 8 men met every Tuesday at their local pub, the Eagle and Child, which they affectionately referred to as the Bird and Baby, to share a few pints, smoke their pipes, and sharpen their wits. Thursday evenings were reserved for more serious and sometimes lengthy presentations, followed by listener feedback at Lewis's college rooms. This club and these friends came to be known as the Inklings. Their weekly meetings went on for years, starting in the 1920s and continuing through the 40s. Some of the great English literary works of the era and beyond, including The Lord of the Rings, The Chronicles of Narnia, the Ransom Trilogy, Mere Christianity, and more, grew from seed form during this time and were tested, scrutinized, and reshaped by these friends during their private club meetings. C.S. Lewis' brother Warren described their meetings like this: "The ritual of an Inklings was unvarying. When half a dozen or so had arrived, tea would be produced, after which, when pipes were alight, Jack would say, 'Well, has nobody got anything to read us?' Out would come a manuscript, and we would settle down to sit in judgment upon it. Real, unbiased judgment, too. For about the Inklings, there was nothing of a mutual admiration society. With us, praise for good work was unstinted, but censure for bad, even not so good, was often brutally frank. To read to the Inklings was a formidable ordeal." Their friendships weren't just the background music of their otherwise important lives either. It was the central driving force behind their greatness. It was written into the fabric of the stories and myths they were composing. Their weekly fireside chats, debates, and sharings were told time and again through their books. We can still see it today in the intense devotion of Samwise Gamgee to Frodo Baggins, or in the honor and loyalty shown between the members of the Fellowship of the Ring, in Reepicheep's duty to Prince Caspian, or in the warmth that the hobbits feel when sitting around the fire in the house of Tom Bombadil. Lewis summed it up well when he posed the question, "Is any pleasure on earth as great as a circle of Christian friends by a fire?" These friendships developed not through idle leisure, but through working and striving together towards the same mission. The mission of redirecting the whole current of contemporary art and life toward the limits of heroism, the nature of beauty, the goodness of truth, and the connection of the pagan to the Christian, as one of the young members of the club put it. We know the Inklings today by their literary legacy, and it is immense, but it was the depth and color of their friendships that they saw as the true defining factor of their lives. It was the brotherhood they shared that spurred them on to their highest achievements. Our society today is largely devoid of male-only spaces, like the clubs, leagues, and guilds of our Western forefathers. And with them has gone the great benefits of close friendships, brotherhood, and the arena where men could encourage and spur one on to their highest potential. We here in Ogden have seen the negative effects of the societal changes and are actively working to rebuild what has been lost. Today on the Heartman Podcast, we'll be continuing our short series on building strong bands of Christian brothers as we talk through how we're attacking this problem, laying out the specific clubs and groups we have here in Ogden, how they're organized and led, as well as what we hope to accomplish through these groups.
As men, one of our primary duties is to provide for our families. Unfortunately, a lack of specific financial plans or goals can prevent you from providing for your family in the long run. We use Joe Garrissey and his team from Backwards Planning Financial. He created a personalized financial plan with retirement, insurance, and tax-efficient strategies so I could provide for my family with detailed intention. Visit backwardsplanningfinancial.com, that's backwardsplanningfinancial.com, or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to develop a plan for your future. Most people don't know this, but in 1776, private American citizens outfitted battleships to fight British tyranny. They didn't wait for permission, they just acted. Armored Republic honors that legacy. They make steel core body armor and tactical gear for the responsible, law-abiding citizen. Because when tyranny rises, readiness matters. And hey, every product is made right here in the U.S., So be ready, be armored, be free. Visit armoredrepublic.com or text JOIN to 88027. That's armoredrepublic.com or text JOIN, JOIN, to 88027.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Hardman Podcast. My name is Tate Taylor. I'll be playing your interim host again today. I'm here with my good friend and pastor, Ethan Senn. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, Tate.
The last time we got to do this, it was prior to the conference, and it's been a minute. So how'd the conference go? What have you been up to since then?
It's been great. Barely feel like we're starting to get recovered from the conference, just from it's an all out sprint, for a couple of days. It's a great time. Met a lot of great folks. We just had a great time. A lot of social events, a lot of hanging out, networking, getting to know people who traveled across the country to be here. But no, I mean, it went really well. We saw things that we're going to improve next year and make it even better, but it was a huge success and a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I was mostly a recipient, of the conference. I was more of an attendee than anything else, but man, it was a lot of fun. It's really cool to get to meet so many people that you've only talked to on Twitter or online or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and we tried out new things this year. The pastor's breakfast was new. That was really cool to get to know and meet some of the church officers across the country and know guys in different cities. And so when people, want to say, "Hey, I'm in Charlotte. What's a good church?" Like, we actually know these guys and we've met them and have some interaction. The games were new this year. That was a huge success. People had a great time at that. I thought that went really well.
Yeah, that was. I didn't realize how white knuckled I was about the whole thing until it was over. And then I told several people, I was like, man, I feel like I'm like floating around now. But
you're like as exhausted as had you had to do the whole thing.
Yeah, the Mount Athos guys actually put out a video, and I think this is in it. But I walked up to them kind of prior to the competition and like, there's no reason my adrenaline should be as high as it is right now because I'm not about to do any of this. But yeah, it was exciting. It seems like people enjoyed it. So that was a lot of fun.
Great turnout for it.
Yeah.
Beautiful afternoon. Yeah. It was a great way to close the weekend before church on Sunday. So we should definitely keep doing that next year. Maybe we'll add a golf tournament to it, day prior or something, some more competition,
little scramble in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be fun. Yeah. I can definitely relate though. We're trying to kind of get back into the rhythm of things. And finally this week, it feels like things are starting to sort of get back to normal. So that's good. It's always a comfort. You are looking forward to getting out of the routine until you're out of it for just maybe a couple weeks.
It's hard to get back into it.
Yeah. And then you're like, man, I've got to get back into just normal life. Today we'll be kind of talking through some of the things that sort of mark our normal lives here in Ogden, which is some of these groups and clubs. We had a bunch of more specific questions about some of the things that we actually do. We've talked about this from more of a theoretical standpoint, why you would do something like this, start a male only group or something like a shooting club or, a workout group or whatever it is. And why we think that's important, why we should be aiming at bringing some of this stuff back that used to be normal. This will be a little bit more practical as far as like firsthand experience. This is what we're doing. And I'm excited about this because I really enjoy all of these. And am somewhat involved in most of them, either through kind of a follower or a leadership role. So excited to talk about them. Same goes for you. You're extremely involved in pretty much all of these.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this conversation came from these things already exist. Some of them were top down, some were bottom up. These are things that we've been doing, figured out how to do them, figured out how to make them better, figure out what doesn't work, and kind of the lessons learned and the keys to success and things like that. And really just want to encourage people to start something. All of this exists because we have a lot of great men in the church who want to be involved and who are of like mind and enculturated and swim in the same direction. But just, how life-changing it is just to have one group, one band of brothers, that you guys are getting together regularly and doing life together, as cliche as that sounds, but that's what we're talking about. Those are your friends. Those are the friend, your wife's friends, your kids' friends, probably the kids that your kids are going to marry one day. Like it's so important to build these deep and meaningful friendships. And it's like rewarding too. It's awesome.
Yeah, bears a ton of fruit if it's done well and done rightly, and the Lord blesses it. So the way we kind of split these up is we have stuff sort of laid out by things that are led and sort of organized by the church itself here at Refuge, and then some of the other groups that have kind of organically come about because members have particular expertise or interest or whatever it is. And so we'll kind of run through them that way. I'll go ahead and list these off first, and then we'll start kind of working through them. The first on here is just our men's book group, which is just an academic theological book group. We're working through books on a regular basis. The second one is something that we've talked about in here, particularly you and I, a few times now, which is our Titus 2 kind of training young men group. We'll also talk about psalm sing briefly, because I don't know if everyone kind of thinks of it as a club or a group, but it kind of is.
Yeah, it functions that way on some level.
Right. Yeah. We have that coming up later today, and we've been off for a while. And I know, like, our family, just at my house, we're excited for it to be back.
Yeah, everyone's been missing it.
Next, we'll kind of talk about St. George's Guild, which we probably could do an entire episode on the Guild at some point, but we do want to kind of cover it in this episode, just because it is something that definitely fits the bill here. It's something that the church is organizing and running and seems to be bearing good fruit. And those are kind of the ones that are organized by Refuge and run by Refuge. These other ones are things that have kind of come about organically. Stonecutter Strength, which is my gym here in Ogden. There's a decent sized group of guys that are meeting there on a regular basis. And we've got our own Signal chat, that kind of thing. We'll talk about it a little bit. And then we also have our preparedness and training group that's a little bit more selective here, that you sort of organize and run. And there's a host of others that we will hopefully get to. We'll see. This last winter, my buddy Joe Forty organized a ski group that we were both a part of to some degree. We've been golfing a whole bunch. There's periodic men's shoots here in the church. We have one coming up Saturday. And then we may even talk about our Refuge Church security team a little bit as well.
And that kind of scratches the surface. Those are the ones that you and I are involved in, that we know about, that we either participate in or lead. But there are probably dozens of others that we don't even know exist that are going on in a similar way, whether they know it or not. But there are a lot of these in the church.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, I know that there's a group that gets together and plays ultimate frisbee during the summer periodically at local parks. And this doesn't even touch any of the ladies groups that are going on.
No.
My wife is involved in all kinds of stuff that's similar to this, but has a lot more to do with like gardening or, baking group or, whatever it is. They're sharing recipes. They're talking about how to grow certain stuff in their gardens.
Yeah, they have book groups. They use all kinds of stuff.
There's tons going on, but we'll kind of talk about some of the ones that we have firsthand experience with. So we'll start with the book group. This hasn't been going on a crazy amount of time. I think we were talking about it the other day. It was about a year and a half now.
Probably a year and a half.
We kind of went through, we did have one listener message and ask us for book recommendations if you're going to start something like this. We do have that, and we can put that in the Patreon for you guys. We can kind of lay out what the book list has been so far in the last year and a half for the men's book group here. But kind of tell me just a little bit about like the rhythm of it, who normally shows up, how many people do we normally have, what are we reading, and then kind of what's the flow of the men's book group.
So we meet every other week. So we choose Thursday evenings, 7 p.m. We try to keep it tight, 90 minutes. We try to say, wrap it up by 8:30. Lots of guys, stay and hang out. Sometimes the discussion just keeps going and it goes later. But we try to, with all these things, be respectful of people's time and make sure they don't just like run indefinitely. So we choose a book, we go through it. We probably have, I would say, average 23, 25 men show up at each one of these things. And that's been really amazing to see consistency and the same guys coming every week and working through the same material. But I mean, even if there were 6 guys there, we'd still do it, So I think, broad strokes, the administration is important. This one's pretty easy. Choosing a book. So for the most part, Ben and I lead it. Ben does a lot more of the discussion questions and thinking through how to do it. But we choose the material, we choose the book, and we also choose how much to go through. So originally, we recognize like there's all kinds of different men in the church. Some are avid readers, working through multiple books a month. Some, the last book they read was in 12th grade, and so the overall goal was to enculturate our people more into what we are. And so choosing books and material that we thought were foundational to our ethos, to who we are and what we're about. And so that's why it's not primarily a Bible study. We're not just going through a chapter of Romans each week or anything, but we're trying to rotate through fiction, nonfiction, and then we've recently added some applied theology. So we're going through Googe right now. But trying to rotate through that because, they all have strengths and weaknesses, but it's nice when you finish a nonfiction to be able to jump into a fiction book and things like that. I think that's overall what we're trying to do is make sure that men are reading. When you have some kind of accountability group, hey, we're working through these 50 pages or these 4 chapters or whatever. It helps people stay on track and be able to say, well, I have this deadline. I'm actually going to work through it rather than just let the book sit on the nightstand and collect dust, which, a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely been in that situation before where, you know that you should be reading a lot of the stuff, but no one else around you is really particularly interested in reading any of it or discussing it. And so it's quite a bit more of a struggle to stay on top of it because it feels like it's almost just for you.
Yeah.
And having a group like this, for me, for sure, I've done more reading since moving here than I've done probably at any point in the rest of my life.
And we're not doing large chunks. Like we're not doing huge chunks. Every 2 weeks gives you enough time to work through it. It's very manageable for people with different schedules. But I just tallied up all the books that we read in the last 18 months, and we've moved through quite a bit of material just doing it that way and just plodding along. So it's been really fruitful for that.
Yeah, it's super consistent. I think one of the cool things about it is the level of buy-in. You do have the guys who are super avid readers, but then you have guys who are a lot more conversationalists. And I think this is extremely helpful for them because if they don't have someone to talk about it with, it's almost just kind of sitting dead in their brains.
Yeah.
Whereas if they can discuss it, things really seep in and are able to affect their lives in a deeper reality. I think this is a really good way of mixing those things. And men's book groups are not some, brand new thing or something like that.
No.
We talked about the Inklings in the cold open. Obviously they were writing and then reading things to each other, but they were also reading excerpts from stuff that they were finding or rediscovering or whatever it was. And so this is kind of our if you can call it that, some version of a meeting like that where we sort of expect everyone to have read this. And, if you're going to discuss it, but at the same time, if you just want to come and talk about it and you haven't done any of the reading, you're more than welcome.
More than welcome. Yeah. I think it's a good men's fellowship time, a male only space. We start by going through prayer requests so people can be praying for each other. And we put that in the group chat as well. But I think the key to this, the key to success for something like this is when we choose the material, we obviously are looking at the frame of all the men in the church and say, like, is this attainable? Are we going to get anything out of this? Or are we just reading it to say, oh, we've read this? And so, recognizing that it's important to have somebody leading the discussion that can frame the discussion and ask good questions. So sometimes, like with Stephen Wolf's book, we went through that last year. It was a lot of reading comprehension. Are we actually picking up what he's putting down? And it spent a lot of time on that, and less on the application. But that was the challenge with that one is he dumbed it down as much as he could for the average guy. But like it's still, he's a very academic guy, very highbrow kind of book, and so making sure that if we're going to take the time to read it, that people are actually grasping the concepts. You can differ, you can disagree with him, but you can't if you don't understand them.
Right. Yeah, that's really helpful. You typically do a lot more of the administrative part of it, making sure guys know what they need to read, when they should be here. Yes, we're doing it this week. No, it got canceled for whatever reason. A lot of that more, kind of administrative side of thing. And then Ben tends to be more of like the MC when we show up. He's the one who's got his discussion questions ready, and he's always got some question that he already knows what he wants the answer to be. And then he's like, what do you guys think? And then everyone fumbles around for 20 minutes trying to figure out what he wants.
Yeah.
But it's good. He's got a talent for that. And so it's good that he's in that role.
I think that is also one aspect that's positive. Kind of like what we're talking about with Lewis and Tolkien was, you're in this open forum where you can say whatever you want. You can answer the question however you want. You can pose a question. But but not everything said in a men's book group is good or correct or and so it gives the opportunity for other men in the church or the leaders of the group to actually correct in a way that people, start to work on that muscle of receiving correction, having thick skin, being able to say, oh, you're right. That was dumb. I was wrong or whatever. And it kind of just builds that community in a way that nobody takes themselves too seriously. And I think that that's just one of the really good fruits that comes out of practicing stuff like that, is being able to take correction.
Yeah. So I do want to talk just briefly from a practical standpoint, like about the forum that we use for this. So in the winter, we're typically in the basement at Refuge. Guys bring whiskey. There's a guy who makes his own wine. He'll bring wine with him. Guys are just hanging out. It's not super formal and stiff. It's generally pretty laid back, but serious at the same time, which I think it's a hard mix to really nail, but this does typically a pretty good job of it. We'll be discussing pretty intense and deep, either theology or ideas or opinions. But also, we might be sitting in the courtyard and everybody's smoking a cigar and just hanging out, with your buddies. And so the ability to be very serious and take the thing that we're talking about seriously without taking yourself too seriously, is another one of those things we're working on here. And I think this does a pretty good job of kind of practicing that. Or
even the courage when there's a question posed, you're like, I don't know. I definitely don't know the answer. Here's a stab. Here's a shot in the dark. Just that muscle of like courage to say like, hey, I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm bold enough to say what I think. And if I'm way off, then I'm going to figure out the right answer. But I think that's something else, a good fruit that's born out here.
Yeah. So you mentioned that we had done Stephen Wolf's book, just some of the ones that were my favorites off the top of my head. We've done The Aeneid. We've done Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, which was
so good,
phenomenal. The ending of The Case for Christian Nationalism in particular, we spent a long time talking about him just going through and just giving his opinions and thoughts.
All the aphorisms and short, just pithy stuff is like so good.
Really, really good at the end of that book.
It could be its own book.
Yeah. We had a great discussion about that. I think it fired everybody up a little bit, to kind of start putting these things into action in their own lives. So that was really, really productive. But that's just kind of a sample of some of the books that we've gone through. As you mentioned, we're going through Domestical Duties by William Gouge now, which is a completely different style of writing and reading and comprehension than some of the other stuff that we've read. So
it definitely stretches guys, right?
Yeah.
Trying to read Gouge, like it's in English, but it's a different language than we speak today, And so it definitely stretches guys. Wolf stretched guys. The Aeneid was very much a stretching book for a lot of people. So that's all been really good. The one thing I'll say that I find is the most challenging to have success in this, especially when you have a wide range of fiction, nonfiction, like applied theology, is working toward application. It can stay in the realm of like theory and just like we just talk about it, but like when it comes to like so what, that I think a really good leader of the group has to force it in, like even the Aeneid, right? We're reading this narrative, we're reading this myth, but like so what am I going to do? Why did we spend all this time just getting together and just talking about this? I think that is the key to success for something like this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that mostly covers the men's book group. There's obviously more we could talk about there, and we could, go into every discussion that we've had if we wanted to, but that kind of sums it up. The next one that I want you to talk about is the Titus 2 thing, which is really been your ship's steer here for as long as it's going on. How long has Titus 2 been going on?
Just a year. We started around Labor Day last year. So it's really just been a year in full force of this program.
So who's in it? How do you recruit that? Who's involved and who's not?
So you have to be at least in 7th grade. We don't differentiate between homeschool and St. Brendan's. Everybody is welcome to it. Now the St. Brendan's kids will do it. And then the homeschoolers may do it if they choose to, but we've had a really good attendance from everybody in the church, who's in that age demographic. So we split up guys and girls. The ladies, 7th through 12th grade, focus on domestic, their kind of duties and skills and abilities, and vocations and things like that are geared toward sex piety, and the men focus on their skills and abilities, and vocations geared toward masculinity and men.
Gotcha. So I know that you guys are typically doing a monthly book that involves a report. Has that been going on since the beginning?
I've done that with the boys the whole time. Because we do focus items every month. We get together the first Friday of every month, and we might an afternoon or a Saturday, or it changes depending on what the thing is. But I wanted also to be able to work on some of those soft skills, some of the communication, some of the just common courtesy, like things that you expect when you meet a well-adjusted young man, that he knows how to reply to an email and shows up on time and all those things. So that was, I think, one of the reasons we started doing that was giving him a deadline, giving him a month to read a book and write a short, essay on it. But then, actually following up and making sure these things get turned in on time. And then, we've talked about the team aspect as well, especially with the young men, but that also gives them the ability to say, yes, we're doing this individual assignment, but we all fail together if somebody doesn't turn this in on time, and we'll be punished accordingly. Yeah.
I don't know if we want to go into the full story of some punishment that was doled out recently for some missed deadlines, but that was a lot of fun, because this same program, the Titus 2 thing, is actually what the boys lifting group was kind of born out of.
Yeah.
You had asked me if I would want to start lifting with them, and I said yes. And we actually started in the church basement, and then this summer we moved over to the gym down the road, and so they're meeting 3 days a week and lifting. But we got to use one of those lifting sessions for some teaching opportunity for, like, hey, just because you turned your assignment in doesn't mean that you're allowed to just skip out and like not hold your brothers accountable.
That is the tough part, where just given the size of our church, the size of our community, these kids really aren't playing a lot of organized sports. They're not on a high school football team. They could be. They're just not. And so that team building aspect and that worrying about the guy to your left and right, like it's hard to replicate that. Mm-hmm. And so this is one of those programs where if there's a deadline by the end of the month and 9 out of 10 turn it in on time, 10 out of 10 are getting punished and doing push-ups for the failure of the other one, because they didn't hold him accountable. They didn't help him out. They didn't help him meet his deadline. They just worried about me, myself, and they didn't care about everybody else. So we're trying to instill that community and brotherhood in them of saying, like, you're not an island, you're not by yourself. What you do affects the people around you, and whether that's for the good or ill. And I think that's been pretty effective.
Yeah, we're making some strides in that direction for sure. The boys do 7 push-ups at the beginning and end of every workout. And on each push-up, they recite a word. And the phrase goes, every decision I make affects my people. And so it's just something we're trying to drill into their heads that, I think, like you mentioned, they're not playing organized sports in a public school setting. And, like, we're not recommending that they do necessarily. But it's some of that stuff that I think most people probably sort of learn by default. Like, I remember going around the locker room in high school and going, hey, are you passing? Yeah. Because if you don't pass your classes, you can't run the football, and we need you to run the football. Yeah. And like, that's why you have to go turn this assignment in, and talking to kids about stuff like that. And it was just a constant speech from coaches. Like, hey, if all of your buddies don't pass, we don't have a football team. Mm-hmm. So you can forget all of this work that you put in over the summer at practice, whatever. And so, like, that lesson, trying to come up with more creative ways in our particular circumstances to translate that to the young guys. So they've got their monthly book assignments. They're lifting 3 times a week. This is also what sort of turned into the FTX that we did a couple episodes on. That came out of this particular group, and this is who went and sort of conducted that. As this continues to kind of develop and grow, what's kind of the vision for it over the next few years?
So at the beginning, we're on kind of this 3-year cycle. And so what we decided was every month, September, October, they're going to be the same topic. So September is always self-defense. But first year it was some MMA, and the second year it's going to be rifle and pistol basics, and then the third year it's going to be first aid and self-aid buddy care and some of that kind of stuff. So the topic remains the same, but every year they rotate through. So ideally, if you get a 7th grader, he will have seen MMA twice before he graduates. He will have seen all these different things twice. And so it's not meant to be an exhaustive, like you're now an expert in MMA and you're going to go compete. But no, it's more of a familiarization and testing and training in these things, letting guys dip their toes in a little bit, especially when it comes to the vocational stuff. We do plumbing or carpentry or, home repair and different things like that. It kind of gives them an idea. Oh, actually, this might be something I'm interested in. And here's a guy in the church who just taught me how to do this. Then maybe I could apprentice with him one day. Which, what we're doing this summer with the boys has kind of born out of that as well. But yeah, so those are the topics that we go through each year: self-defense, fishing and hunting. We do vehicle maintenance. We kind of have a potpourri month where this year we did personal spiritual disciplines and did some kind of like how to defeat porn, kind of preemptive stuff with the boys, plumbing or another vocation, hosting, hospitality. That is something we're going to do every year in January or February, is have a formal dinner where we can practice etiquette and do that combined with the guys and the girls. And then we work on fitness and nutrition, tools, woodworking, and then the FTX or some kind of outdoor kind of capstone event.
Yeah, really cool. Definitely something that I wish I could have been a part of when I was younger, which is one of my favorite parts about this. Sort of on the flip side, you and I are both in this situation, but we both have sons and none of them are old enough to be in this program yet. But if we want them to have something to step directly into when they do reach that age, well, then it has to be started now.
We have to build it now. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It's a way for us to sort of take some of the stuff we're talking about in the book group or, listening to in a sermon on Sunday morning when the word's exposited, like this post-mill vision of building and growing and, taking dominion over the things that we have at our fingertips and giving us an opportunity to actually start doing some of that stuff and putting it into practice.
And I think the administration with this is also super helpful. You could say like, I take my boys camping or I take them shooting, once a quarter, once a year. And like, but to have an actual schedule and then plan and then execute that plan and say, these are the learning objectives that I want to accomplish. And then say, you can finish it and say, did we do that? Or did we goof off the whole time? Did we want to go fishing? Were we successful? And, just building these things in, it's a little bit tedious is to have that, that much of to be planned out and plan a whole year or 3 years in advance. But, it's kind of like the book group. You can look back over the year and be like, wow, we actually accomplished a lot over a relatively short period of time. And I think that that's really helpful. And again, it's not meant to be the end all be all, but it at least gets guys started. And Chase has never caught a fish before, caught some fish in May. And maybe now he's, Dad, can I get a fishing pole for Christmas? And maybe that's one of his new hobbies and things that he goes off and really excels in. But he may not have ever known that or decided that's my thing if he hadn't been exposed to it.
Right. I think one of the other big aspects of this particular group is that these in many cases, young kids are getting to experience what it's like to be treated like a man and go, no, you're just responsible for this thing that we had you signed up for this, your assignment's due. Did it get done? Yes or no? And just the very direct speech of that, the high expectations, the standard that's set that they're expected to meet all on their own. It's not like, hey, go home and ask your mom to do this thing for you or have her sign this permission slip or something. It's like, no, this is on you.
Yeah.
You're being treated the way that men are treated.
Even attendance. Like if guys aren't going to make it to a gym session that they said they're going to be at, they're expected to email you or ask to borrow mom's phone and give you a call and text you and let you know, hey, may I be excused from this event or from this thing that I'm supposed to be at. And just those are the kinds of men that are easy to work with, that are competent. And, we're just drilling that in right now in, lower stakes. But by the time that they get to do it on their own, like it's going to be second nature.
Yeah. I really enjoy the Titus 2 program and I don't even have, my boy's not even in it yet. So I'm excited to see what it turns into in the future. The next one we wanted to touch on was just Psalm Sing. So today's Tuesday. We're getting back to it. We mentioned earlier that everybody's kind of excited to see it come back. I don't know if everyone, like we said earlier, really thinks of this as like a club event or some sort of like exclusive group, because it's sort of open to the entire church, or even visitors if they want to come.
We invite anybody to come to Psalms, just like Sunday morning, like anybody can show up.
This is actually one of my favorite ways when we have people visit, to kind of let them see what the culture of Refuge is like. If they're going to be here during the week, we make it a huge priority to try to be at Psalm Sing when we have visitors, because I think it's just a really good way for you to get to see what everything's like and how people interact, and much less formal situation. Everyone's not sitting, during a worship service that's an hour and a half long, where you're not communicating with each other, like you're there to worship God. And so you're not focused on just meeting people, right? This is a whole lot more informal. It's very productive.
Yeah.
But the first 45 minutes to an hour is a potluck. Families bring food. We just
complete social event. Right?
Yeah. We just hang out and talk, and, kids are running around. We have food in the basement, and then we come upstairs. Everybody grabs psalm sheets, and, we separate into our separate parts. So we practice 4-part harmonies. And so we have the 2 ladies groups and the 2 men's groups all split up, and you stand or sit with the group that you fit into so that you can hear them singing, and gets you kind of in the mode of like understanding what you should be doing. Because most of us aren't trained in music. I've never like learned how to read music. There was very little musical training at all for me growing up. Like, listen to bands and stuff. Like, I like music, but I don't have any training in it. And so this has been really good to sort of just learn by doing, get experience with it, and also be around friends where you're just like, well, actually, it's a lot of fun to like sing with your buddies.
Yeah. I mean, even more, in some respects, more than Sunday morning, because when the basses are all together, we're the loudest group. When we're not singing, we're just hanging out and shooting the breeze, and it's a great time. But it's great to sing and just like sing boldly, sing loudly, have that kind of like assurance that everyone else around you is singing loud too, and you're not the only one. You're not doing a solo up here by yourself. Like it's just good camaraderie that you don't necessarily get on Sunday morning because everyone's spread out.
Mm-hmm. I think I've also noticed, we put this in here as one of the groups, and then I started thinking about it sort of in retrospect, and I'm like, there is kind of just a select group of people that you expect to see at Psalm Sing every week. There are people that are sort of, maybe they'll be there, maybe not. You wouldn't be surprised to see them, but you have people here in the church that are friends of ours that that they're going to be there.
Well, like if my family's not at Psalm Sing, you're going to text me like, hey, are you guys okay?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I expect to walk in and you guys already be there most of the time. I have a handful of other buddies that I just expect to see them at Psalm Sing. And, we look forward to it. It's a lot of fun. It's also fun because like productive. I mean, because it's not all that often as an adult that you get to try brand new things and then see the progress happen in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And you go from like, oh, we're terrible at this, to, oh, that actually sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
We learned a handful of new songs for the conference this year, and the first, 2 weeks that we sang them,
rough.
They were not good. It was bad. And all of us were like, oh gosh, like we're going to sound like idiots, you know?
But it only takes a couple of weeks before it's like, no, actually this is a banger.
Yeah. Like, this is really good. And then you look forward to singing it. And now we sing them on Sunday mornings, and you get excited when you flip through the bulletin and see it. But you don't get that a whole lot in just whatever your vocation, or, even if I always bring up this example because it's my example, but like, if you've been training for 10 years, there's not that often that you run into something where you're like, oh, I got really good at this one particular lift in the last 2 months. Like, that just doesn't really happen anymore. If you've been doing it for a while, whereas this is, we sing all the time, but when we're introduced to new songs, you go from being really bad at it to like being halfway decent at it pretty quickly. And it's actually a lot of fun just to see the progress.
The other thing that's like that, if your name is Eric Kahn, is golf, where 9 months ago it was horrible, and now you're like one of the best guys in the office.
Yeah. The golf aficionado. There's a trophy that Ethan custom made in his driveway sitting about 2 feet from me that's in Eric's office.
Yeah. It's really, really special. Really high quality craftsmanship.
So what is that exactly?
That is what I found in my shed the night before the golf tournament. and it's a piece of trim, JB welded to a flower pot, JB welded to a Miller High Life, JB welded to a golf ball, spray painted gold. So that's most coveted trophy, I think, in Ogden right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is something to look at.
I mean, they earned it 11 under.
Hey,
they earned it.
They were serious.
Do you have any keys to success you see when it comes to psalm singing? If somebody was say, hey, we sing out of the Trinity hymnal, or we don't really do psalms. And when we say psalms, we sing a lot of psalms, but we also sing hymns as well, or like they're not all straight psalms. But if somebody was going to kind of want to introduce this in their church, like, the reason why we do psalm sing is because we decided to start singing psalms. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do it well on Sunday, you need to practice. And that was the origin of it. And we still use it that way, right? Like, we still introduce new songs and new psalms every, few weeks till we master them, do them on Sunday, and then they're in the repertoire. But I guess what do you see as those keys to success?
I think sort of buy-in from your people is big here. Kind of convincing them of the why behind it first is going to be huge. But I think, honestly, the leadership side of it, similar to the book group that we talked about earlier, or even Titus 2, like the fact that Brian can implement the Sing Your Part app, but it's really him that's doing it. Yeah, mm-hmm. We use the app, and the app's extremely useful. Lots of families use it at home as well.
Yep.
But his ability to go, hey, here's what we're aiming at. We want it to sound like this. And then also be super lighthearted when we sound terrible right off the bat, and like can sort of jokingly make fun of us and go, wow, that was not good.
Need to practice this at home this week.
Yeah. Like you guys have homework is, one of his regular things. And he's got a smirk on his face, but there's some truth to it too. Like it's funny because it's true. And I think that if you have someone who has, some sort of musical talent, can sing, or even just has an interest in that particular area that can lead something like this, mm-hmm. I think that's massive. I think we would still be able to pull off psalm singing. We could still do psalm singing if we didn't have Brian, but it would be a very different thing.
If you had the Sing Your Part app, without the app and without anybody with any musical talent, it would be very challenging, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he has a particular skill set that sets him up to be really, really good at that. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it really productive without being super high stakes where you're nervous about it or something like that.
It's not a choir.
Right.
It's not very few people have any actual musical talent in the church. But they sing loud and they sing enthusiastically and they practice at home at family worship and things like that. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Attention business owners. Proverbs tells us, in the multitude of counselors, there is victory. At KeepWise Partners, they aim to apply this principle to your business as you work to build Christendom in all your labors. Running a small business is challenging, but you don't have to go it alone. KeepWise Partners offers expert bookkeeping services with the care and integrity you'd expect from a partner who shares your values. And to take it a step further, their advisory services bring invaluable insights to you as you aim to meet your business goals. Here at New Christendom Press, we've partnered with KeepWise for all our bookkeeping needs and have greatly benefited from all their assistance. Visit keepwisepartners.com or call Derek Taylor at 781-680-8000 to schedule a free consultation. KeepWise Partners, bringing finance and accounting excellence to the way you build your business. Strong men make stronger families. Stronger families build stronger churches. And stronger churches build stronger communities. In a world that preaches comfort and weakness, Mount Athos Performance calls you to rise. They're not just selling protein and supplements, they're reclaiming a culture of faith, family, and lasting strength. They don't offer quick fixes, they forge real men. With pure ingredients from their family farm and a mission rooted in Christian excellence, they're building a new standard. Do you want to be chiseled like a Greek god? Visit athosperform.com and use code NCP20 for 20% off your next order. Did you know that 60% of Americans will avoid your business if you have an unattractive logo, even if you have good reviews? Seriously, it's true. This podcast is sponsored by Resurrection Design Co., and they're on a mission to help churches and Christian businesses like yours flourish for the kingdom of Christ and the glory of God through bold and beautiful branding. If you want them to design your website for free, be the first listener of this podcast to sign up for a brand identity package before the last day of this month. Just visit resurrectiondesign.co/hardmen.
I think those are some of the biggest things to look for, is like have someone who can lead this and do a good job of it. Make sure that there's some sort of buy-in from the people that you're going to try to be singing with. And then I think probably the same, this is, one of those evergreen principles, but like, don't bite off too much right off the bat.
There are some, the Christ Church app in Moscow, they have a ton of this sheet music and the songs, audio or video, they're not all easy, but there are some that are much easier than others. Like, Psalm 23 sung to the tune of Amazing Grace. That's a great first one to start with, because you already know the tune and you just have to figure out what the King James version of Psalm 23 is. Like, that's a really good, easy one to start with.
Yeah, I think that would be super important. Start with something manageable and get it down. This is practice. You're not going in there to try to do some new thing every single time. We sing the same songs over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
To the point where we have favorites.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your favorite song coming on the radio when you see that we're going to sing "The Day Is Past and Gone" at the end of Psalm singing. Everybody's like, hey, let's go.
Yeah. Like my kids get pumped when they see the bulletin.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say those are important.
I'm just now thinking about this, but also the fact that there's a meal, there's social time, there's practice, there's, all these different things that aren't competing, but some people might come for the social hour and then stay for the singing. Some people skip, show up late because they're working and just come for the singing. But it's not just like you're trying to get people together just to practice. It's not a, choir practice where that's all you're doing. So I think it does probably invite a wider range of people to attend when it's not just one thing, but you get the meal, you get the social hour, you get time practicing singing, and I think all those things work well together.
Yeah, I agree. So that's Psalm Sing. The last one that we wanted to talk about that's sort of organized and run by the church is St. George's Guild, which is sort of a leadership, churchman training, officers in the church being trained up. And this is one that, once again, hasn't been going on for a crazy length of time. What, a year and a half, almost 2 years?
Yeah, it would be 2 years this summer, essentially.
Okay. You and Ben also lead this. So if you'll notice, there's a whole lot on Ethan and Ben's plate. The more we go through these, there's a lot of administration. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of just like being on to be ready to lead groups like this. So that's something of note here. Like, we've brought this up, in previous episodes on this particular topic, but like, you have to have the right guys in order to pull some of this off. Obviously there's a whole host of groups here. So you don't, like you said earlier, even just having one is a big deal and is extremely productive. But I think maybe for a lot of guys, like, the place to start is some self-development to the point where you could actually lead something like this. Cause, you guys are juggling a lot of stuff, but you guys lead the guild. And, so kind of tell me what the thought process is behind that. I know we've talked about it in other places, but kind of the elevator pitch.
So, the guild is to how we raise up new church officers and also churchmen that aren't necessarily going to be officers or deacons or elders. But overall, it is unlike the book group or Psalm Sing, where anybody can attend, whether you're a member or just visiting or whatever. This is a selective group where we actually go through a vetting process of an application, pretty robust application, and an interview. And then the session will actually approve who is admitted in to the guild or who is not. And there's a whole host of reasons why that might be. But obviously if it's an officer guild, then we're starting with the 1 Timothy and Titus requirements for church office. But there's also a fit aspect. And this is something that's really important to our team. is the fit. So essentially somebody could be qualified for church office, but they're not going to be a church officer here because they're not a good fit on the team. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But as far as cohesion and unity and vision go, it's just such an important criteria to take into account. Just because somebody can doesn't mean they should at this specific place.
I think this is actually a really important point because of the application of a much larger principle that's being put into effect here. Whereas this is not egalitarian.
Right.
This is not just like everyone gets a chance just because you're owed it.
Right.
Kind of a thing. Like maybe you are completely qualified and will be a great pastor in a different church, but that doesn't mean you're going to be on the elder team here.
Right.
And so I think being able to be unapologetic about that takes a very particular group of people that have a very particular set of principles and convictions to be able to actually put something like that into practice. I think in most areas, something like this is immediately shot down just because it's selective.
Right. Right. Yeah. But I think for a couple reasons, it's really important. Part of where we're at is we recognize we're growing. We need more church officers. We need more elders. We need more deacons, and we need them, right now. But the problem is, you can't make elders and deacons overnight. It takes a long time, and we're very slow when it comes to this. We're very diligent and try to be just really thoughtful in the way that we develop new leaders. And because that takes time, it has been one of our priorities to really pour into this program and make sure that we are making new church officers and elders and deacons. And it's gone well, but it's just one of those things you can't, like special forces, like you can't mass produce it. It just takes time, and it takes personal relationships, and there's no way to speed that up.
It also takes a tremendous amount of standards, like figuring out what those are, and then figuring out how to select for that. I think your example of like special forces is a good one to some degree here, where there's a very particular kind of guy that you're looking for, and it's going to take a bit to identify someone who even has the raw material to turn into that, and then also once you find the guy, then you have to actually turn him into the thing that you want him to be.
Yeah.
And he has to be fully bought in on that as well. So, really interesting program. I've been in since, I think, when did we start? October of last year?
We do applications in August, interviews in September. We kick off in October, and it goes for 12 months. And so we have 3 tracks. We have an elder track and a deacon track and a churchman track. Biggest difference with the churchman track being that when guys show interest or say, I'd like to do that, there's no automatic, like they don't have to say, I want to be a church officer. They could just say, I'd like some more intentional discipleship, and I'd really like to go through this program and learn more and develop and be a better husband and father and just man in the church. And you don't have to expect at the end, now I have to sign up to be a deacon. Unlike, the deacon and the elder track, where we're looking at a guy specifically for that office, and then we're going to train them and test them and then put them through candidacy if they're doing well. That's the biggest difference in those 3 tracks.
Gotcha. So this meets bi-weekly as well. We meet on Thursday evenings, and there's a pretty hefty workload when it comes to reading. We typically have 2 books going on at a time. Tell me about a little bit, like how are the books selected? What are you kind of looking for? I know that we're going through the Churchman Guild right now. Why did you pick or why did you guys pick the books that you're sort of using? And then, what are we kind of looking for in these meetings?
So each track has its own syllabus, and they actually don't overlap. Potentially somebody could go through the Churchman Guild, then the Deacon Guild, then the Elder Guild, and they wouldn't have actually repeated any material. It's all, fresh material. And they're all catered toward that specific role. So if you're an elder, there's obviously a much more focus on counseling and preaching and that kind of thing. If, deacons and churchmen, backing up to the Churchman Guild, we put together a curriculum. Every month has its own focus item, but we chose a primary and a secondary book. Primary book is typically theological, and the secondary book is typically fiction. And we said, if we took, everybody in the church and put them through these 12 months, what would we put on that list to make them more refuge people? And so it's everything from Lewis and Tolkien. And, when it comes to theology, we just have a different focus each month. It might be,
it might be something like hospitality. This month we're doing Face to Face, and which is a hospitality book that I'll be leading the discussion on. And then you also have guildsmen actually leading some of these meetings. So you have a different guildsman, who's going through the training, who's responsible for leading and conducting the meeting on the book that they, have been assigned.
Yeah. So we rotate through each month. Somebody else is leading that discussion who's a, student in the guild. And I think that accomplishes a couple things. Obviously the requirement to read and show up and have read is much higher than a book group. Like you can't not have read. Like you signed up for this, you knew what the requirements are. You have to read the book. But then it also kind of, one of the ways that we think about this is people like graduated guildsmen or even, in the guild, when there's like low level counseling or things that don't require a pastoral meeting or 6 weeks of counseling in the office or something, low hanging fruit. We want the one anothering. We want people to be able to shepherd one another and be able to help one another. And so if they've all been through these books and they're familiar with them and they've mastered them, maybe it's on conflict resolution. It should be a force multiplier in the church where people can know, hey, I know Tate's in the guild. I know, he probably knows the answer to this question that I'm going to ask, and they can reach out on a low level without it having to be elevated to like pastoral counseling.
Yeah, that's really good. I've also seen just really basic stuff like, hey, we need these things taken care of this week. I know that there are guildsmen in charge of, sort of setting up and cleaning up for things like psalm sing. We have 3 ordained deacons now that just became deacons. So they're obviously kind of heading up a lot of that, but there's sort of a structure here. The deacons are helping the elders, the guildsmen are helping the deacons. And then you have a whole chain of command there where you have a bunch of guys who can respond to things at a moment's notice if needed.
Yeah.
And you're not sort of scrambling and asking the entire church if, someone can go check on somebody at the hospital or whatever it might be. You have a very particular group of guys that you're going, hey, this is the first line of defense that we're going to go to sort of solve these problems. And then if that doesn't work, we'll continue on from there.
It definitely kind of prevents the tragedy of the commons where you blast something out to, 390 people and everybody assumes somebody else is going to take care of it. Now, we have these delegated roles that somebody's in charge of psalm singing and cleanup, and somebody's in charge of communion on Sunday, and somebody's in charge of cleanup for that, and somebody's in charge of putting together the annual picnic in August, and whatever the things are, what your role is, what your responsibility is, and there's delegated authority that comes with that. So we definitely lean on the guildsmen a lot because that's what we think the exemplary churchman should be. Is he's leading his family well. He's doing family worship. He's loving his wife well. He's disciplining his children. His kids, sit still in church and they sing loudly and raise their hands when we sing the doxology. And so all these things, we want to be able to point to these guys and say, be like them, and I think that that's one of the things that accomplishes.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. I think one of the other things that sort of relates to what we were talking about in the cold open, where these guys were just actually good friends, is that every now and then we'll have an open week where we're scheduled to meet. Similar to this week, we're reading the Ransom trilogy, so we're going to end up talking about it because it's just fantastic.
You can't not
talk about it. But we were given the option, like, hey, would you guys just want to go hang out somewhere? I know we've gone and shot clays before. We've gone to the driving range, and then gone and got dinner together. There are times where we're just hanging out and just being friends.
We try to be intentional with that. So we meet about twice a month. One meeting, we're going to talk about the primary book for that month. The other meeting, we might talk about one of the fiction books. We might go play golf. We might just go get dinner and hang out, or go through a case study or things like that. But we want to actually get to know each other and be friends, and it not just be a purely academic, sterile environment, but one where we actually are in each other's homes and having dinner together, and our families get to know each other. And I think that is a really important aspect as well.
Yeah. So I think you brought that up. That's something that's a little bit different about this from the book club. Typically we're going to your house or we're going to Ben's house. I know we've been to Brian Porman's house. We're in typically a little bit more of an intimate setting. We're in someone's home. Typically their wives making desserts for us or whatever. Guys bring their whiskey with them. There's times when we've sat out in Ben's front yard and smoked cigars. Like there's something to it where we're kind of cultivating this involvement in one another's lives.
Yeah. It's definitely, so right now we have 7 guildsmen in the program, and that's about as many as I would put through. I think, less 3, 4, 5 would probably be a more manageable number, only because we do get together once a month and do kind of like more, we call them 2-on-1s, because me and Ben meeting with each guildsman, but we'll go through a lot more of the personal stuff and how's your marriage doing, and how are your kids, and how's family worship going, and just like kind of check in periodically and make sure that things are going well, and that, the priorities haven't shifted where I'm doing really good reading Ransom, but I'm letting this go at home and I'm not reading my Bible. So we try to check in on that. But I think your question was, or comment was more about like the intimate setting. And unlike the book group, there's 25 guys. You might be there for 90 minutes and never say anything, and that's fine. Right.
Yeah.
But in this group, like we're expecting engagement and your thoughts and answers to questions and things like that. Like you can't really be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. So another similarity, I just thought about this just from a practical standpoint. These are both run through Signal chats or email. Typically the guild is an email chain where we're given, official administration of as far as like, here's timing, here's what we're reading, here's when it needs to be done by, here's when the meeting is going to take place, here's where it's going to take place, all of that stuff. But these do have their own Signal chat. So we have a guildsman Signal chat where these guys, along with the pastors and elders, are involved in just like discussion, right? And so more serious theological questions, typically from what I've seen from other guys, like this is where they're asked. And you get sort of a more robust spot to put this that's also not an entire crowd where you can go, hey, I just read this, had this thought, what do you guys think? And then you can have more of a, maybe 3 or 4 guy conversation in that group rather than it being, 100-person group text.
Something you don't necessarily want to blast out to the whole church for 2 reasons. One, like there's probably people that don't need to be responding to that specific question, and you don't need 100 different answers. And 2, if you can do that in a small discussion, have a good answer, come to the conviction. Then when other people ask the question, you're equipped to deal with it and give the theological basis for that conviction.
You also know that you're on the same page as the guys who are leading everything, and you're not going to be stepping out of line and contradicting what they would be teaching,
right?
Or responding in that particular situation, which is extremely useful. Same thing goes for the book group though. That's a lot more. It's basically turned into just the churchmen's,
just men's chat
for Refuge. And there's all, like we're having Bitcoin versus gold debates, and anything goes in there to some degree, political stuff, memes, like there's all kinds of stuff that's in there. But you can tell there's a very different flavor to that one than there is the guild.
Yeah.
The guild tends to be a little bit more serious and pointed and intentional, whereas the men's group is a little bit more open and fun. Anything else you want to hit on the guild there before we move on?
I think the only other maybe aspect to it is we've made it somewhat free flowing. And what I mean is that we don't have this very rigid year 1, year 2, year 3. We don't typically use the deacon as a holding pattern to make new elders. They're their own office. Though obviously like Ben was a deacon, became an elder, but that's not, necessarily what we expect for every deacon to eventually be an elder. And so for that reason, we kind of have the flexibility to say, it's not just this rigid program where you do year 1 and then you're a churchman, and year 2 and now you're a deacon. And then we'll see, we can take guys who maybe have a lot of potential. Maybe they're young. Maybe they only have, they just had their first kid. They've only been married for, a year and a half, and say, I think you have a ton of potential. I don't want to just, I want to keep pouring into you. I want to keep discipling you. I want you to keep being involved. And so maybe I'll take one guy and maybe he'll be in a churchman guild for 3 years, and we'll go through different material, and we have tons, but it doesn't have to be so rigid where it's like, okay, year of deacon guild, and then 6 months of deacon candidacy, and now you're a deacon. Like, it takes wisdom to know the guy, know his frame and what he needs, and be able to prepare him best for that office.
It's really good. Cool. So that's kind of the stuff that's organized and led by the church, which is and has been bearing a ton of fruit. I do want to briefly talk about some of the stuff that's just sort of like organically come about. We'll start with the strength and fitness group, which has been a lot of fun. This is mostly guys who have gotten involved in this. I've found that you have this effect for sure. But when guys get around one another that respect each other and like admire certain aspects of one another's lives, you tend to start seeing them look like one another. Like all of a sudden everyone has on blazers and all of a sudden you look up 4 weeks later and everybody has cowboy boots. And like slowly when the guys, at the top of the hierarchy, that everyone respects, when they do certain things and they have a certain flavor to their lives, everybody's like, hey, that seems like maybe it's a good idea. And I think this has been one of the main things that's happened with the strength and fitness group is that we've just had a group of guys who this has kind of been switched on for them since I got here. And I sort of like, I just naturally, I think in a room, find those guys because that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to do in my spare time. It's like, I think we've talked about this before, but like getting to the gym is usually not an issue for me. I know some people struggle with that and everyone's different, but it's typically more of like if I don't do it, things feel off. And so very quickly, guys like Matt Mullins, guys like Joe Forty, found those guys quickly. Connor Drake, Ryan Portman. There's so many guys that are actually already into this stuff. It's just not, the center point of their lives or anything. Yeah. They have other vocations. They're engineers, or they work on software, or they are, salesmen, or they work at a fire station, whatever it is. But they just happen to have this side hobby. And what's happened with the strength and fitness group is that we've just sort of been able to tie all those guys together with this hobby. It's been a lot of fun. One of my favorite things about this is Saturday morning meetings. And I think it's productive in a few different ways. First, we meet on Saturdays at 7:30, and there's no prerequisite for you like being able to lift a certain amount or run a certain, mile time or something for you to show up. Literally anyone can show up. I have buddies that just got into this after being away from it for 20 years. And they're like, I got to lose some weight and get back in shape. And they're showing up with their 10-year-old sons, right? Like there's no prerequisite, but it's super productive for them. They get to show up. It's not interrupting their entire Saturday. We do it pretty early in the morning and knock it out. But it's a good time for them to sort of reestablish the fire a little bit and make sure it stays stoked. Similar to the book club, like if you don't have anyone that you're doing these things with, it makes it a whole lot more difficult to maintain the momentum. Whereas if you're met with a bunch of other guys who are getting after it and staying in good shape and are constantly making progress, and you're met with that example on, maybe a weekly or biweekly basis, suddenly you're like, this actually needs to be a priority in my life. And the rest of the week, when I am by myself, I need to make sure it gets done. So I think we've seen that there. It also is good in the subtraction ways, where it's like you can't stay up until midnight scrolling on your phone on Friday evening if you're going to be at the gym at 7:30 in the morning, right. Or you could show up and feel terrible, I guess. But like it's good in that it encourages you not to waste your weekends doing stupid stuff.
Well, I'm sure your Saturday is far more productive too. If first thing you do is get out, get your heart rate up, sweat, hang out. And then, the rest of the day, you're not going to just go back to the couch.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that for sure in my own life. I think other guys, it's the same way. The other thing is that this is how I think organically like friendships are built. If you don't have plans on a Saturday evening and things are open and, your wife's like, what are we doing today? Well, if you go run into all of your buddies on Saturday morning at 7:30 and lift together, and then afterwards you're just kind of hanging out, that's when plans are made.
Yep.
That's when you figure out what you're going to do for the rest of the weekend. Hey, there's this thing going on up at Snow Basin. We should go check it out. All right. What time we'll go after the kids take naps.
Yeah.
That kind of thing just happens organically, and it happens naturally. When you have these structured times where guys are meeting and getting together.
Yeah. It's like line of sight, right? If you're just trying to, who am I going to do this with, or who should I invite, or what should we do? But if you're just around guys, it's like, hey, let's go do this. And that those things happen just naturally.
Yeah. This is done at Stonecutter Strength. I took over the lease of the space in April from Jace Reineveld, who's been on here. He's, Alpine Gold. He's into everything, but he owns the property. We basically use a big storage closet at the back of one of his commercial buildings, and it's not fancy at all. I just want to throw this out there because we get questions about this all the time. Like, okay, well, I want to start lifting or I want to start doing this and have some guys over at my garage, but all I have is some dumbbells and a barbell and, whatever it is. You really don't need that much stuff.
You make it look too good on Instagram. Looks awesome.
Every single time I've had someone who's seen it online and they've shown up in person, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is tiny." Like, yeah, thanks.
but to your point, it has everything that you need. It has, absolutely everything that you need to be effective in that space.
We've had up to a dozen guys in there working out all at the same time. In the warmer months, you can open the double doors and we just move stuff outside and we use the courtyard as well. But yeah, you really don't need much space. You don't need a crazy amount of equipment. You can do the exact same stuff over and over and over again. Our boys in the Titus 2 program, they squat on Monday, they bench press on Wednesday, and they deadlift on Friday every single week since we started this months ago. And all of them are continuing to make progress. Now they're young boys, so they're still kind of filling out. They're still very much in that like quote unquote beginner gains phase of strength, but you don't have to get super fancy with this stuff. Typically on Saturdays, it's structured with some sort of lifting first, where we pick something on the barbell, and there's really usually not a plan. Like we walk in there and we kind of look who's there and we go, what do you guys want to do? And then someone throws something out there and somebody's like, my shoulders hurt. I can't do that. Or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we narrow something down. This last week, we overhead pressed, and then we did some stuff with the sandbags, and it ends up being just sort of like a big, like adult play session. Where it's like, we're going to the playground, but as adults kind of a thing. We're going to see who can pick up a 150-pound sandbag and put it over their head or, whatever it might be. But it doesn't have to be crazy structured. One of my favorite ways from a practical standpoint to get a bunch of people working out at the same time. So you have 8 or 9 guys show up and you've got to get them all out of breath and moving and something like that. You can set up stations and run those stations for 60 seconds a piece and then just do whatever that is. Say you got 6 guys, set up 6 stations. You run through all 6 stations for a minute apiece and go through that twice. And typically by the end of 12 minutes, you kind of look at everybody and go, are we going to do a third one or are we good? Like everyone's pretty smoked. So you can pick stuff that's really manageable and then just do it for a set time period, move to the next thing. And that's a really good way to set things up where you don't have guys just kind of standing around the whole time.
Yeah.
Really is the goal there. But we've got a signal chat for this as well. We will somebody will throw out there on Thursday or Friday evening, like, are we going to the gym tomorrow morning? Who's out of town? Who's in town? We doing this, or am I going to show up and be the only one there? Which wouldn't be the end of the world. But typically you have 4 or 5 guys go, yeah, I'll be there. And then the next morning, typically around that many show up. You might have more than that. You might have less, but it's not super formal. It's not like we're tracking attendance or something like that. But it's one of those things where if you have this sort of built into the culture a little bit, guys are incentivized to be good at it, and they don't want to lag behind. That's just the nature of people, I think.
I think as we talk about these different groups, buy-in there's different levels of buy-in. There's different levels of commitment where there are some groups like this where you typically get the same guys every week. And that's, that's really important. The book group, similar, but also there's of 25, there's probably a third of them that kind of rotate through and will have different seasons and show up or not show up or whatever. But the number kind of remains the same, but like differently, the guild, like the buy-in, the commitment, I'm going to show up and I'm going to have done the reading and or write the paper, like that's a different level of buy-in. That's a non-negotiable thing where if somebody, when they sign up, when they get approved to join, like they can't just decide, oh, I don't have time for this anymore. I'm in a different season. Like those things could happen, but like we really try to prevent that by putting it all out in front and making sure people know what they're getting into.
That's a really good point. I think something that's super demanding and sort of commitment based like that has to be a high level of buy-in. Whereas something like the strength group, it's super organic. Some of these guys have memberships for the gym. They use it throughout the week, but Saturday mornings is free. Anybody that wants to come is welcome to come and hang out, and form technique stuff can be talked about, worked on, that kind of thing.
Because some of these guys are working out multiple days a week together, right?
Right. Yeah. So typically myself, Joe Forty, Matt Mullins, we're all working out Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the evening together, partially just because we're friends, but it's also because we know that the dial is going to get turned up a little bit if the other guys are there. Mm-hmm. And so perfect example, yesterday we did a pressing workout. We did some bench press and some overhead. And then we were trying to figure out something to do that would kind of get us out of breath, but hit those same muscle groups towards the end. And we came up with something, and it was significantly more difficult than I was really bargaining for. And all of us were sort of in a hole by the end of that workout. But it was really good because it was the kind of thing where if it had just been me, I might have planned the exact same thing and I might have executed it, but I wouldn't have gone to that level of intensity because my buddy's not sitting there going, are you just going to stop doing push-ups in the middle of this minute? Like, you've got 30 seconds left. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so having that accountability, even if it's unspoken, is super helpful.
What would you recommend? Maybe a lot of it can be organic, or maybe you have enough expertise in the field where you're kind of like making it up as you go, and it works. I could imagine somebody wanting to get into shape and wanting to get a group of guys together to work out together where they're like, need more structure or need a better plan. Like how would you know which category you fall into, or what would you recommend for that?
Without going too deep into this, there's a general thing that everyone's trying to do. Everyone's trying to lose body fat and gain muscle. Everyone. Typically you fall into one side of the category where you're trying to do one thing more than you're trying to do the other. So you have guys who are hard gainers who are trying to gain a bunch of muscle, and we have guys who gain weight really easily who are trying to keep it off. And so the thing to remember is that generally you're trying to do the same thing, which is why a sort of spur of the moment, not very structured plan can work. Not to say that it's necessarily optimal, but that's sort of a nebulous term anyways. What I would say is try to find someone who has the expertise. Typically, if you find that guy, he's not going to be against talking to you about it. Like, he's in the situation that he's in. He looks the way he looks. He can do the things that he can do because he really enjoys them. Yeah. And so he probably will enjoy talking about them as well. So if you go up and are humble about it and don't try to bring a bunch of extra stuff with you and just go, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, but here's what I would like to do. Does that seem like a good goal? And then how would I get there? So I would start in your local context. If you have someone like that in your church, start there. Try to build a relationship with that guy. See if it's something that he can help you out with. Coaching is great if that's what you need and you don't have someone in your local area that you can't get to. I do some online coaching. If you wanted to hit me up, more than welcome to help you out. We've had several guys that have come here and visited and then met in person, and now they're online clients. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun because we actually know each other. But yeah, I would sort of approach it that way. I would start with, you have someone in your local area that you could go approach and talk to and build a relationship with, because that's going to be a lot more fruitful than typically having an online coach. Some guys are really good at online coaching and it's great. But pretty much without fail, it's like having online friends versus having in-person friends. Like the in-person relationship is going to be better.
Probably depends on the individual, what works for them and who the coach is. It's probably similar to Psalm sing where you need somebody with some level of expertise to be effective. Where if everyone's just standing around looking at each other like, what do we do? Like that's not going to help. But if you have at least one guy who can have some leadership and some administration and things like that, like that's probably going to be far more effective.
And maybe it's something where we have these situations where we have the guy who's you could say he's the talent, and then you have the guy who's like, make sure that everyone shows up to be there when he's going to lead the group. Yeah. Right. Like that might be the situation where you're like, hey, I can organize this and make sure everyone shows up and get the buy-in, but I don't have any idea what I'm doing. So can you lead this? Yeah. If that's the situation, go for it. And be willing to learn in the areas that you need to learn and be willing to take charge in the areas that need to take charge. So that would be kind of the advice there. But that's kind of the fitness group. It's continuing to be built out. Obviously, there's multiple facets to it. We have the Saturday morning thing. We have workouts throughout the week. It's become sort of a business now where we're selling memberships and all of that. But it's also something that really came about just to be an asset to the church, because a bunch of the guys here, because of the things we're talking about, the things we're working towards, are interested in the subject and would like to learn, but aren't experts in the field. But it also is connected to the Titus 2 stuff where, we're bringing up young guys in it. So,
and because we don't necessarily want all of our guys going to the local strip club to work out.
It's a great point. This is something that's been brought up numerous times. It's like, why can't we just have male only gyms? You're like, well, you actually can just do stuff.
Yeah.
You could just do that if you wanted to. I think you could do it out of your garage if you really wanted to. We have a guy here who bought a hyperbaric chamber, and he has an automatic door opener. You can get an app and you can go use it whenever you want. You can sign up on the calendar, and then you can open his garage door because he's giving you the keys to it. And, that's something that you can do in a garage gym setting if you wanted to allow guys to come use your stuff. Obviously, it depends on the situation, how well you know the guys, the community, all of that stuff. But yeah, anything that you can do to keep guys out of globo homo gyms where they're going to be met with naked women constantly, or dudes are just as bad. It's ridiculous. So we have, at Stonecutter, we have ladies only hours during the middle of the day. A lot of the women here don't work. And so they're at home with their kids during the day. They bring their kids with them and hang out. And my wife works out with one of her friends. Both of them bring their kids with them. They do a workout for an hour in the middle of the day. They know that no other guys are going to be showing up while they're there working out. And, then the guys have their hours where they know that there aren't going to be other men's wives showing up to work out while they're there.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's great.
Cool. So that's kind of the strength and fitness thing. The last one that we'll kind of hit on here in some depth is the preparedness and training program, which is something that you sort of got involved in and now are sort of kind of administrating, leading. And along with one of our other buddies, Dan's brother, Jason, you guys kind of organize a lot of the shooting, the drills that we're going to do, plan things out in advance. What do we need for kit? What do we need for ammo preparation, all that good stuff. So tell me a little bit about how this started, why we think it's important, and kind of where it's going.
I think this is one that there's one group of people that are like, absolutely, we need to do that. I do that right now, whatever. And there's another group that is probably like, oh, that seems dumb. That's a waste of money. You buy all the gear, all the guns, shoot all the bullets. It's 50 cents a round. Why? And so, for the one group, you don't have to convince because they're already convinced that, looking at the state of the world or maybe it's just from a masculinity aspect of these are skills and abilities that men need. Men need to be able to defend their families and be well-trained in self-defense and know how to handle themselves, push themselves in difficult, stressful situations. Maybe you come from that perspective, or maybe you look around, you look at all the 10s and 20s million immigrants and say we're becoming a third world country and this is a dangerous place to live. And, things happen all the time and I carry every day. And maybe you fall into that kind of category. But I imagine in our circles, there's still a large group that exists that thinks no, I have a gun. I don't train with it. If, the crap hits a fan, I'm not going to be John Wick, but I'll be good enough. I have a gun. But I think that maybe to that group, or maybe the doubting group, maybe I would say recently in this group, we read a book. It was called Surviving the Economic Collapse, right? Mm-hmm. So it was about 2001, Argentina went from a first world country to a third world country because of an economic collapse, hyperinflation, things like that. It's a wild book. I didn't know anything about this, history of Argentina, anything. But it's a true story about what actually happened in that country not that long ago.
From a firsthand guy, he was there when it took place.
He lived through it.
Yeah.
And I didn't need a lot of convincing before I read that book, but that was one that I was like, if anybody has any, is this possible? Could it happen here? Why is this important? Why should I prioritize it? That would be one that was just a wake up call for anybody. And it's not just shooting and training and being really proficient with a rifle or a pistol or anything, but it's all aspects of life. And it's just wild to see how, and the most striking thing was that things didn't go from like everything as normal to like Wild West. There was this gray area that people operated in. So law enforcement still existed to some extent, but they probably weren't coming. But if you got stopped, you probably had to bribe somebody, or like just all these things that sometimes you get money out, and we still used, pesos or whatever their currency was. But you couldn't always get your money out. And so you had to find other ways to barter and trade. And just like every aspect of your life, you just think about like, how hard of a target am I? And I'm not a doomer, black pill, I post mill. But I do think these are skills and abilities that we want to train our kids in. We want to raise them to be, dangerous men who can take care of themselves and take care of their families. And this is, one way to do that. We don't have things like the Boy Scouts. We don't have other, we're not recommending people go join the military and develop these skills. And so you have to have some outlet to be able to teach them any of these stuff. And this is tied into the FTX and why we do things like that. But I think overall that was the plan. We had some guys who were like-minded, talk about prepper stuff, talk about rifles and shotguns and body armor and all the cool stuff. But then also like food and water and storage and freeze dryers and how to be a harder target than everyone else around you. And if something did happen, God forbid, would you be able to take care of your family or have the requisite skill set to be able to figure it out?
Right. Yeah. It's been something that I was sort of vaguely interested in, but getting some hands-on experience with it here in the last few months has been awesome. And this is another one of those things where like skill development very quickly is like seeing the progress every time we go out for shoots or, rethinking how I'm allocating money and things like that within our household. If you wake up tomorrow and your water doesn't come on, what are you doing? Right. Like that's a very real scenario that could happen. And so that's kind of the stuff that we're discussing, planning for, what are the contingencies here? If something happens and we don't have power all summer, what are we doing? Like, how are we doing?
How are we cooking food? How are we purifying water? Things like that. And I think that there's two things to consider, like most likely course of action, most dangerous course of action. What's the worst thing that could possibly happen? It's probably not very likely, but what is more likely? And I think the other kind of thread that runs through all of this is, as much as possible, everything is like dual use. It's not a singular, I'm going to go buy a tank, and the only thing I can do with my tank is, shoot other tanks. But it's more like when you buy a rifle, well, it could be, and maybe a rifle is a bad example, but, food storage would be one. This is one where my wife is canning. And so she has now learned and developed a skill set that she never inherited from her parents. So she has a ability to preserve food in a way that is healthy, and she's making her own food, and it's better than whatever else you can buy from the Mountain House or eating MREs or whatever else like that. But it's food she's making anyway, canning extra food. Like it is more work, but it's that skill set, but it also keeps us with a decent amount of food on hand in the event that, the grocery trucks quit running. So it's not like all the chips in on this one, we're going to have a HEMP kind of deal. And this, we're going back to like Escape from LA. Like that's not what's going to happen, more than likely. But if you have a freeze dryer, now you've made your own camping food. Now you can take it on elk hunts. Now you can do these things. If we're doing a long range shoot, it's dual use because it's, I'm zeroing my rifle for the elk hunt, and we're going to go elk hunting and hopefully kill something. But also now we practice our long range shooting in a way that is maybe a little bit more effective than just, shooting soda cans in the desert.
Yeah. I think the other thing is just thinking about kind of what are the top priority things that you should start working towards saving for, which has been huge on this, like the knowledge base there, learning skills. And then also like you mentioned a freeze dryer, like, well, I could just go buy freeze dried food. And you're like, well, yeah, but what if you could do this yourself? And then the other part of that is that your kids can learn to do it with you. And so they just grow up with the skill set and the knowledge and the experience, even down to like, what kind of vehicles are you going to buy? Because this one's got an entire computer in it, and I don't know, it could just be turned off. And maybe unlikely, but also maybe not.
Yeah.
Right. And so it just kind of thinking through some of those things and then slowly being able to kind of move towards a, like you said, harder to kill, harder target, a little bit more resilient, a little bit more independent, not quite so dependent on everything around you.
Yeah. Or you think about, I mean, go back for the last 5 or 10 years and think about all the things that have happened, recently, LA riots, floods in Texas, Hawaii, how many natural disasters, how many riots, George Floyd stuff, like how many times
COVID, across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like how many of these things, like you don't actually have to think like, oh, what if a nuke goes off in my backyard? Like we have enough bad things that happen on a regular basis, every day and it's just because Twitter like erases your memory every day and you have to find out what the next crisis is. But there's probably another dozen of, if that happened in your town, like train derailment, North Carolina, like how many of the fires, like all this kind of stuff.
There was a protest recently in Salt Lake where someone was shot and killed.
Yeah.
Like this was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Texas, all the Muslims moving in, all the, it's
a 40-foot tall Hindu statue.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of things. There's entire Muslim cities being set up in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
The amount of illegal immigration that's taking place and has taken place for years now, it's off the charts.
Yeah.
And I think his book that you mentioned earlier is really good on some of this. Like, actually, things don't just go from black to white all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. It's actually a pretty slow burn. And it's very strange. Like one neighborhood might be in an all-out war, and the next neighborhood over, everything seems normal.
Yeah, I think about our community and like, are we going to be able to help and bless our community, or are we going to be a burden on our community? And I think that's been one of the aspects of, while we keep a tight group and it's pretty high barrier to entry and commitment and all those kinds of things, but we also try to reach out to the church, do trainings, do whether it's medical or do comms or do rifle or pistol trainings and things like that periodically with the men in the church, get them thinking about these things, and try to basically export some of that knowledge on a smaller scale to everybody else in the church. But, at the end of the day, do you have a church and a community full of people that are all in need and have nothing and are going to die because they're out of water and out of food, and you can't talk to them and can't communicate? Or do you have at least a core group of people that are going to be, the ones that can help everybody else?
Yeah. Yeah. Super important. So that kind of talks through the preparedness group. We are meeting on a monthly basis. We typically have a book that we're reading, and then we're doing a shoot, once a month, with a very particular, objective in mind. We're either doing 2-gun or we're doing long range, or we're, whatever it is. Or we get together. I think I missed Saturday, but you guys did some communication stuff where you're working on radio communication and things like that.
Yeah. We found that the administration and the planning on that makes the actual event go a lot better. The training is better. It's a better use of your time and your ammo, and, to actually think through that. So every month we try to have a different focus item, like concealed pistol or 2-gun or shotgun or long range or medium range AR, different things like that, night shoot, and try to focus on at least one of those things a month. And I mean, to be honest with you, shooting once a month, like, you're not getting better doing that for the most part. Like, you might be maintaining, if you're not doing a bunch of dry fire at home, but, live fire shoot once a month, I would argue for most people should be, what they're trying to accomplish, whether that's with a group or on their own or whatever, like just to stay proficient. If you're going to carry every day, like you gotta be proficient.
Yeah. Really good. So very quickly, we're sort of running out of time here, but we did mention there was a ski group this last winter, which was a lot of fun. Actually, we've got some ski resorts that are really, really high quality, very close to here. We had several people that had snow basin passes. We had some organized night skiing at Powder Mountain, which is not too far from here, about 40 minutes. And some of those we had 20 plus people.
Yeah,
going up.
Can't beat the price, like $22 for a night pass or something
for a night pass. Yeah, it was a blast. Actually, they have one fixed chair up there, and we have 20 people. So like, legitimately, at some points we had a third to a half of the people on the hill that evening were Refuge people. And it was a blast. So that was a lot of fun. That also opened up more opportunities for people to go skiing together and meet up together on other days. They got a Friday off, and they meet up up on the ski hill and hang out for the day. We've got the golf group, which has sort of organically grown here in the last 6 to 8 months and has sort of like consumed about half of the men in the church.
Every week, somebody else that I meet is like, "Oh, I bought golf clubs this week."
It happens. It's been happening a lot recently. I mean, even on Sundays, we're getting together and hitting the simulator at your place and just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
But it's something else for us to do together where we're not just like sitting there talking about our feelings or something. Mm-hmm. It's something for us to be actively kind of working on and trying to progress in and helping each other with and making fun of each other when we're terrible and, that kind of thing. You mentioned that the preparedness group also helps with some of the other just general men's shoots at the church. So typically these are the guys that are kind of leading those, organizing them and sort of walking around and making sure everything stays safe, helping out with cues and coaching and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Just like the way we plan, these are the objectives. What we don't want is, hey, we're doing a shoot and everybody brings every gun that they own and I'm going to shoot my 22 and my pistol and I'm going to shoot this shotgun and I'm going to throw clays and then, I have a 50 and we're going to shoot the 50. Like it's just like a waste of ammo. But if you show up and you say, hey, this is a concealed pistol shoot, don't bring any rifles, don't bring anything else. We're just going to do this. The drills will be focused on concealed pistol drills. We're going to do bill drills and box drills and Mozambique and El Presidente, things like that. And then with the big group or a bigger group, I think it's more helpful to do a lot of practice where everybody has their own targets. Which requires a little bit of target stands and steel and, whatever you want. But then once everybody is warm and somewhat proficient, then get the timer out and start, running through actual time drills and comparing scores and hit factors and things like that. I found that to be pretty effective. Also at these shoots, we have a wide range of proficiency, guys that have shot competition and guys that, just bought their gun. And so having a sorting process kind of at the beginning with a basic drill, like a bill drill, and being able to take some guys down to one side and do, more of the put it on the timer and compete and practice, more drills where adrenaline's going and you're against the timer. And then also having guys at the other end with more one-on-one coaching of this is your grip and your trigger pull. And this is how you do a follow-up shot and a reload. And this is which way your bullets go. And you need a new holster and, things like that can be a lot more effective for those different ranges of guys.
Yeah, it's really good. There's also a big overlap between the preparedness group, the shooting with the general men's, just the entire church, and then also our security team. And so there's a big overlap there for the guys that are sort of organizing, running, and leading that. And I mean, just anecdotally, I feel a whole lot more comfortable on Sunday mornings because I've gone out and shot with the guys who are walking around with headsets on.
Yeah.
And I know that they're proficient.
Yeah.
I know that they know what they're doing. I know they know what to look for. I know that their radar is on. They're not just sort of like moping around the church with an iPad, looking at camera screens. Like they're very aware of what's going on. And the level of confidence when you're bringing your wife and kids into a building like this. And I mean, I don't know. Every church is going to be in some sense under attack. I don't want to diminish this, but here I think is one of the hot spots. If there's going to be some sort of even supernatural, sort of attack on a place that's bearing fruit and fighting against the idols of the age, I feel like we're sort of sitting in the heart of it. And so you would want to make sure that you're taking every necessary precaution.
Yeah. I mean, we have had need for our security team, at least once a quarter, if not more often than that. We get, Central Ogden, people hopped up on drugs, homeless people, things like that, people that, aren't actually here on Sunday morning to worship, but casing the church and we had a homeless, all kinds of stuff. And that doesn't mention, Ben has a spicy tweet and then the Salt Lake Reddit page tries to post his address on there, things like that, where you're like, no, this is really, really bad stuff. So it's really, I think it gives people a lot of confidence, not have to worry about that because they know that there's a proficient team that trains regularly. Not because the odds of drawing a gun and shooting somebody are pretty low, but the odds of, somebody having a heart attack or using the AED or, doing some CPR, things like that. I think those are way more prevalent. So we do focus a lot on that. We have some deputy sheriffs that will teach, just how to interact with people and de-escalation and how to get people to leave when they shouldn't be there. And just like all of those soft skills that are going to be wielded way more often than a pistol.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that, where I think one of the biggest things is just being able to talk to people, analyze the situation, figure out why someone's here. Why are they asking the questions that they're asking? Are they genuinely interested because they're looking at maybe becoming a part of this, or are they just trying to gather some sort of information that they can leverage against you? And tremendous amount of confidence in our guys that are walking around doing that stuff. Not just because I've shot with them, but because I know them. Like they're buddies. We hang out. It's not something where the only place we ever see each other is on Sunday mornings. Because of these groups that we've been talking about, these guys are interacting all the time. They're constantly problem solving. They're constantly analyzing the things that we're up against. And it's a organic, progressive process of continuing to grow this entire thing from the church to the entire community. But in a way that is flexible so that you're able to meet whatever new thing shows up that you're having to deal with next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the security team is one that is super important. It's a little bit different than all these other ones that we've talked about today, especially in terms of the camaraderie, but it's one that like you need to have a huge amount of faith in. And it's not one that you can just leave up to like, well, who's ever carrying today? You're on security team. Like, no, you need to know who's on, who's not. And one really important aspect is like teaching the congregation about how to react to a bad situation, whether it's a medical thing or an active shooter or somebody who shouldn't be there. Like we talk about this all the time, the new member meetings, but like everybody in the church carries. Right. No,
there's
doubt.
A bunch of dudes with guns. Yeah.
But I don't need, if worst case scenarios, there's an active shooter in the church. What I don't want to see happen is that, 40 guys pop up and start shooting. You're going to have way more, friendly fire than actually, I want you to get down, get on top of your family in the pew, stay out of their way, let them handle it. Like think things like that. And I think just briefing those guys on who to point stuff out to, who to communicate with, and how to handle a bad situation, whether that's calling 911 or helping with CPR or whatever is really important as well.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I think we've probably already run over our time here, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But that's kind of the groups that at least we're involved with here or in some way attached to firsthand. We hope that this is somewhat helpful, gives you some ideas for some things that you can start in your local community or ways that you can improve stuff that you already have going. As always, like you can reach out to us through the Patreon and ask more questions if you want some more stuff there. Yeah, we can put up the list of books that we've gone through here in the last year and a half in the men's book group there in the Patreon. As always, ask us any questions that you have. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. I don't remember what he says. Whatever Eric always says, do that thing because this is the Hard Men Podcast.